G'day everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. So finally, the AFL trade period for 2022 has come to an end, and boy oh boy was there plenty of deals and trades left, right and centre. And in today's video we're going to be unpacking it all and going over every AFL club and grading their trade period performance. If you're going to enjoy today's video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, that would be much appreciated. And let's get into today's video. Okay, so how this video works is quite simple. We'll go over every single AFL club, see who they brought in, see who they got out, and we'll just simply review it all, give it a grade, away we go, simple as that. Alright, so first off, Adelaide Crows obviously going alphabetical order. The Crows, so yeah, bring in 𝐼𝐿𝐴𝐿 Rankine. Finally they get their man. They've been wanting Rankine for a number of years now, and I think it's a solid pickup for him. He's just a superstar player. I think now him thriving under his home environment could be something special, so I still think he could genuinely be a superstar. The trade itself, they gave out a pick 5 to Gold Coast. I think that's a win-win. They get who they wanted for a number of years now, whilst Gold Coast get a solid top 5 pick. Also, yep, a lot of future 3rd and future 4th trades as well involved with the Billy Frampton trade, and also a pick 46 in. Billy Frampton coming out is not a worry in the world, I don't think. He's just a depth player that really struggled to get in the side this year for the Crows. But yeah, obviously it was always going to happen, really. 𝐼𝐿𝐴𝐿 Rankine finally coming to the Crows. Man who they want. I'm going to be giving the Crows a solid B for their trade period of 2022. Now moving on to the Brisbane Lions, and it is safe to say they were definitely one of the teams that were the winners of this trade period. I'm going to be giving them a A+, the best grade possible, because who they brought in and considering where they are with their list, and they're in that flag window, is just brilliant. Bringing in Josh Dunkley, looking at that list, do they need another midfielder? And have a look at that. They've brought in Dunkley, who was the best and fairest winner, obviously from the Bulldogs, so that just changes everything. Gives that relief a bit more to 𝘬𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐿 and 𝘬𝐿𝐴𝐿𝐿 and also 𝘵𝐿𝐵B𝐵, but it's just going to be a solid addition to their side, and you can obviously play forward too. It'll just give them an extra danger, focal point really in their midfield. And Jack Gunston as well is just such an underrated pickup in my opinion. I said in my video around a month ago of the Lions I reckon should pick up Jack Gunston, and they've picked him up. I think it's going to be a really underrated pickup. He's still very capable of kicking 30, 40 goals a year, and again, creates a bit of an extra point in attack for the Lions. And of course, I think they got Dunkley on a really good deal. I think it was pretty much a first rounder and a future 2nd, 3rd and 4th. Dan McStay was always going to leave, and Tom Berry was a player that was never really going to get much game time to the Lions. So yeah, who they've brought in, considering where they are, is just huge. They're going to be a huge threat for the flag, you pretty much think, next year. A+ for their trade period. Move on now to Carlton, and they are usually one of the teams that are quite busy in the trade period, but this year, awfully quite quiet. They are a side with, I think, their list is the most non-drafted players in the competition out of any other team. So they've only brought in one player, of Blake Acres, who I think is a decent pickup for the Blues. They got him on, pretty decent price, a future 3rd. I know a lot of Freo fans are a bit fuming that they, got rid of Acres for a future 3rd, but, he finally had his career best year this year. Role plays, he's a role player as well, which, aren't going to be too much come draft, the trade period. But yeah, for Acres, just gives them a bit more solid running power across the flanks and the outside game. An area that Carlton could really improve in, give a bit of healthy competition to 𝐼𝐿𝐴𝐿 and also O'Brien too along the wings. But they really need some good ball-using talent, I reckon, and I don't think Acres is one of them. So it'll be interesting to see how he does fit in the side along the wing next year. And yeah, of course, Setterfield. I mean, if 𝐷𝐿𝐴𝐿𝐿 was playing in the second half of the year, I don't think Setterfield will be playing, so it isn't a huge out for him. And obviously a few pick swaps along the way. So I'm going to be giving the Blues a solid C. Acres is a decent pickup. Can just see how he goes next year. Now moving on to the Pies, and they were another side who were, I think, really good in this trade period. I'm going to be giving them a solid A. The players that they did bring in, and, looking at the picks that they gave up, it wasn't really that bad at all. I mean, the best that they did give up was a future 2nd. They also kept pick 25, so they didn't have to use that for Tom Mitchell in that 3-way trade. So the picks that they've kept is really solid, and looking at their ins, awesome. Tom Mitchell was a player in my video a month ago I reckon the Pies could really pick up, and he is a solid addition, I reckon, to that Pie side. Just that extra contested midfielder in the coalface, distributing the ball out. That's an area that they really need to improve in. Very good in the clearance game too as well, Mitchell. I still think he can easily, average around 25 to 30 disposals next year. Bobby Hill, a bit of a Verge 22 player, I reckon, for the Pies, but just adds a bit of a young talent in that area alongside McCreary and Jack Ginnivan. McStay, he's never kicked 30 plus goals in his career, but still will be a really solid structure player. Frampton as well adds a bit of depth in their key position range. But the picks they kept is really good. They have pick 25, pick 27. I think they've got 2 first-round selections. I think it's 3 picks inside the top 25, which is awesome. Grundy, I don't think the deal was that bad. Could have gotten a bit more, but same with Henry. But the players that they brought in were really, really good. A solid A, I reckon, for the Pies. Now moving on to the Dons, and a side that really could have gotten in some serious good talent. They were linked to Dunkley, linked to Teqoy. Didn't really get that, so they just settled on a few needs, really, in this trade period, picking up Will Setterfield and Sam 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻. A big midfielder, Setterfield, so that could really help out the Dons, who are quite a small midfield. And 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻 as well, a solid little swingman, could really do a solid job alongside Peter Wright next year in that forward line, with maybe Harry Jones as the third tool. A lot of pick spots involved. Aaron Francis, they don't mind that. The Dons at all couldn't really crack through the side. It's sort of a quiet trade period in a way, but some solid depth and also, needs that they have picked up through Setterfield and 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻. I'm going to be giving the Dons a C+ for their trade period. Now move on to the Fremantle Dockers, and it's safe to say they were certainly one of the most busiest teams in this trade period. Have a look at all those outs and ins. Jeez, the bloody weeds. But with Luke Jackson coming in the side, it is a huge addition to them, I do believe, because now Darcy and Jackson, it's going to be really interesting to see how they line up. Obviously Jackson will spend plenty of his time forward, and Josh Corbett, speaking of key position forwards, with Lob out, I think Corbett is a decent in. He's a really solid contested mark. I think he'll be a decent addition to their side. O'Meara as well, on deadline day, wanting to move back to WA, and what they gave away for Jackson, look, I don't think it's overly too bad. It could have been a lot better, in my opinion. I think they paid quite a bit too much, in my personal opinion. But a lot of the outs they did have. Akers, Logue, Meek. Meek was always going to leave, really, because he couldn't obviously get a game with Luke Jackson coming in. But just those additions I think are really good. Jackson could really change the side. He's a project player as well, so don't expect too much from him in the coming year or two, I have to say. But I'm going to be giving Freo a grade. I think that's a bit generous, but I just like it. The outs they did have, but look at those ins. I think they're going to be some really good additions to their side. Luke Jackson, the main one, of course. Moving on now to the Cats. Simply an A+. I think that's safe to say when you're picking in Jack Bowes plus pick 7 after winning a flag. That is absolutely huge. I think, the Suns could have really done a bit better on that. But, Bowes, nice little addition to their side. Probably VFL player, who knows. But the huge additions, that's safe to say. Ollie Henry and Tanner Bruin. Bruin returning back to Geelong, or where he did grow up and play his footy for the Geelong Falcons. And Ollie Henry coming to the Cats to play with his brother. Some really good looking players that they've brought in. Cooper Stevens they've brought out, it's a bit of a Verge player. Obviously those picks have come out. But getting a pick 7 after winning a flag, that's just the main thing. I think they've done really well this trade period. The Cats also bringing some young talent along the way of Henry and Bruin. Absolutely solid, and A+ for their trade period. Now moving on to the Gold Coast Suns, and it's quite obvious they are easily going to be in the D range, and I've given them a D-. I still think that Bowes and pick 7 is just a terrible move. It's probably one of the worst in recent memory, really, with the trade period. I've given a pick 7 to a side that's won a flag, and they'll probably maybe pick up Jai Clark, so that's a sort of a Joel Selwood regen, almost, I guess you could say. But with that Bowes, they could have maybe advertised a second rounder, or maybe a lower first round pick, not a pick 7. I thought they could have done a lot better on that. I guess a few things that they did well. Obviously bringing in pick 5 is quite solid, so they could really bring in an X-factor midfielder from the draft, which they desperately need. Ben Long and Tom Berry, not bad additions at all. A few youngsters that could really get going or thrive outside the Victoria bubble, especially for Ben Long and Tom Berry getting a bit of game time. But that Jack Bowes and pick 7 is just idiotic. That's safe to say, and that's why they do have a D grade next to their name for this trade period. Moving on now to the GWS Giants, and they were always going to be a side that were going to be under the cosh with a lot of their players exiting the club. Taranto and Hopper, huge outs. Bobby Hill and Tanner Bruin as well. You know, they're medium forwards that are now out of the club. So, of course, they're going to have a heap of picks. And to be fair, I really like what they did, picking up pick number 1. So I feel like with that pick 1, they have to take CARDMAN. Obviously, they won't get Ashcroft because he's nominated the Lions. So I like that. You know, they've been aggressive in the process, picking up 𝗬𝗏𝗶𝗶𝗶 as well, just gaining back a small forward, which they do need. So, yeah, you pick 1. I mean, 3 first-round picks, a future first for Richmond. I'm going to be giving them a B. I feel like that's maybe a bit generous, but considering that it was a given, they're always going to lose those players, and what they've done to pick up a pick 1 is pretty solid. I like the aggression that the Giants have done there, and I feel like they'll definitely pick up Aaron Kapanen, and that is safe to say. Now moving on to Hawthorn, and they are a side that's probably one of the most unusual list changes out of any team in this trade period. I'm going to be giving them a C. Now that might be generous to some, but you know, there's 2 ways to really think about it, in my opinion. First thing is they're going to be a side that's really going to be heavily invested in the draft. I think once again this year, they're a young side. They're going to be fielding one of the youngest sides again next year. They're just completely redoing that solid rebuild, just flushing out all those players like Gunston, Mitchell, and O'Meara, and bring in the young talents like Cooper Stevens and 𝐼𝐷𝐿𝐼𝐷. Meek's one I really rate because he could generally be a number 1 ruck for him next year. Cole Amon, I think, is a good fit for the Hawks. You know, I think he's got a really solid kick on him, and I feel like Hawks ball use can be pretty ordinary from what we've seen this year, so it could be pretty solid along the wings. And, you know, the problems, the other side of the coin is, you know, they've lost over 1,000 games of experience. You know, they haven't really got much draft capital, nor experience in return for taking out Gunston, Mitchell, and O'Meara. They got, you know, they got in return pick 41 and 50 for Mitchell. I think that's way too low. They should have gotten a lot more for that. But it's just a bit questionable for what they've done as well. They haven't really brought in much experience. You know, that's half their, or pretty much nearly all of their leadership group players gone. You know, Gunston, Mitchell, O'Meara, they are clubmans, true servants to the club, and they've only brought in, you know, Amon, Stevens, and Meek. I feel like that's not enough experience they've brought in, so it's a bit unusual in a way what they've done, but I still give them the C grade because, you know, the additions they've brought in, they just really wanted to play the youth, sort of, so at least they keep their picks as well. That's another important thing, so they're just going to be heavily invested in the draft. I've given the Hawks a C. Moving on now to the Demons, and they're always going to be a side that we're going to be truly busy in this trade period with the Jackson and Grundy rumours. Out goes Jackson, and to be fair, as I said for Fremantle, I did say I thought they could have done a bit better with the picks they did get, because I have to say, I thought for giving out Luke Jackson, they were pretty solid in return. I mean, pick 13, a future first and a future second, I think that's pretty solid. They could have gotten a lot less for that, so I feel like that's pretty solid in return for the Demons. They got some solid picks there. They get back a first round pick after now it's owned by Sydney. And in the process, they do bring in Grundy for a pick 27. I think that is really good. But yeah, Grundy and Gawn, that's going to be a serious ruck partnership. Josh Sharkey, interested to see how he'll go in a new environment. His 3rd club, obviously, so probably be sitting as a bit of a swingman. Lockie Hunter as well, a bit of depth along the wing. And yeah, bringing up 𝐻𝐻𝐻, Bedford, Hunt, just a few of their, you know, role players that could easily be replaced. But yeah, I think they did really well on that Jackson trade, and bringing in Grundy for pick 27 is solid. I'm going to be giving the Demons a solid B for their trade period. Thought they did really well. Moving on now to North Melbourne, and oof, yes, this is an interesting side to go over, of course. The last 2 years have now lost their pick number 1. Horne-Francis out the door. That's a waste. And they have traded out their pick 1 for 2022. So I know that a lot of people will probably be grading North as one of the worst performers in the trade period, but I like to look at it differently. I still think pick 2 and pick 3, and you know, they have to really rely on Port Adelaide though with that future thirst. I still think pick 2 and 3 is pretty solid. They could have obviously gotten a lot more from it. Horne-Francis, I mean, the way I think about it for North Melbourne is, if Horne-Francis were to keep on staying for a few more years, obviously I just felt that his relationship with the club and his performance maybe would have just deteriorated a bit, because he obviously wanted to return back to South Australia. So maybe getting rid of the Hornet now, sooner rather than later, could be a bit of a blessing in disguise. They now have the luxury to pick up, let's say, maybe 𝐼𝐻𝐿 and Wardlaw-Sardis in the draft. So those are really solid pickups. And alongside that, I think people have forgotten that Griffin, Logue, and Tucker are really nice additions. Tucker, a bit of midfield depth, and Logue can really help out Ben McKay in defence, I think. And they got pretty good deals for that. Future 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. But yeah, obviously all the main drama around North is losing Horne-Francis and their pick 1. But for me, 2 and 3, are really good, but of course the main problem is they could have gotten a lot more from it. And that's 2 years in a row now, and they've wasted a pick 1. But yeah, a C grade for North, I'm going to be giving them. Look, it could have been a bit more generous, but I just feel the additions that they did bring in were pretty good. They could have gotten a lot more for pick 2 and 3, but they can pick up some real good talent in the draft with those 2 top 5 picks. Moving on now to Port Adelaide, and they certainly one of the winners in this trade period, of course, landing Jason Horne-Francis. And I think the deal that they got for Horne-Francis was pretty solid. It was a pick 8, a future first and a future second, I think a future third as well. But yeah, you feel like Horne-Francis, here we go, this is the perfect environment for him to thrive. His boyhood club back in South Australia, so I'm really interested to see how he will go next year. But it's safe to say they easily won that 4-way trade, the power. Bringing in 𝑗 𝐼𝐷 as well, quite cheap I think as well. I think it was a future third they did get him for, which is a really nice addition. They were in desperate need, the power of a crafty small forward, especially with Robbie Gray and also Motlop retiring. And yeah, out goes Carl Amon. I think he's a replaceable player up here. I'm going to be giving them an A. Now moving on to Richmond, and I'm going to be giving their trade period a solid A. I've loved what they've done, the Tigers, these past 2 years. Last year, they were just really heavy involved in the youth, and what they did in the draft last year was really good. They accumulated all their draft picks, drafted really well, and have a look what they've done now this year. They've got all their picks, and they've just put them, chips in really to pick up Taranto and Hopper, who could be absolute superstars at the Tigers. So I love how they've, invested last year, this year, all chips in on these 2 solid players. And yeah, they've really wanted to be aggressive, the Tigers, and it's interesting to see how they'll go next year under Taranto and Hopper. And yeah, that's just going to really bolster their midfield, I do reckon. And yeah, giving out a future first of the Hopper deal as well, and 2 first, technically only pick 12 and 19, so first and second for Taranto, I think are really good deals. But yeah, really aggressive in the trade period, a solid A, I reckon, for the Tigers. 2 huge inclusions in their midfield. Moving on now to St Kilda, and it is easily one of the worst performing sides in this trade period. Obviously didn't do much, but considering the position that they are in, just in that mediocrity kind of area, they've just got to do more in the trade period, and they just sat away, did not do much at all. I'm going to be giving them a D. The options that they could have had, they could have picked up Jack Bowes in that pick 7. That would have been awesome. 2 top 10 picks. They could have had the chance to land a goal. I don't think they were aggressive enough in the trade period. I think they offered too much for giving out Hunter Clark. Sorry, but yeah, in comes 𝐼𝐴𝐷. I mean, is that the addition they want to see? It's a bit of depth, I guess, to help out 𝐼𝐴𝐷 and 𝐼𝐴𝐿 in the back line, but yeah, it's just a chance gone begging, I reckon, for the Saints. They could have done something massive, bring in that X Factor superstar the Saints desperately need, but looks like it's back to investing in the draft again for 2022. They could have done so much more. The Saints D grade is quite fitting for him. Now move on to the Sydney Swans, and they were always going to be quite quiet in the trade period, only bringing in Aaron Francis and giving out their future 4th and going down 5 spots on the list to pick up Francis. So a good deal they got for Francis. Keen to see how he does go, and maybe could be a bit of a Paddy McCartan 2.0. I think him leaving the Victoria bubble, thriving in Sydney under a good culture, I think that's going to be really good for Francis. Gives a bit of healthy competition for a few of their key position defenders they do have to get in the side. I'm going to be giving the Swans a solid C grade. I think the main thing for him is list player retention, keeping the list they have, and they're going to be going in the draft for 2 first rounders. So they have been heard to maybe push up to a top 10, bundle up. I'll package those 2 picks in the draft. But yeah, they're a side that's always heavily invested in the draft. But yeah, solid C grade, I reckon, for the Swans in this trade period. Moving on now to the West Coast Eagles. And of course, quite interesting what they've done. I think in that 4-way deal that they did hop into, they probably got the worst out of it theoretically, giving up their pick 2, Junior Rioli, to only really get in return a future 2nd, 3rd, pick 8 and pick 12. But for me, I like to look at it as a glass half full sort of approach. I think in their situation, the Eagles, they are in desperate need of young talent. I like to think that they are looking for probably quantity over quality, So I still think the pick 8 and 12, it could have been better for a pick 2, but I don't mind it in their situation, because what they can do now is, instead of picking a Wardlaw or something like that to play, maybe leave in a few years, they are now having two solid first round options. And the thing is, I think people forget about as well, the Eagles, is they're a side that drafts really well, especially in the first round. So they could pick up, let's say, a 𝐼𝐴𝐵𝐵 from Western Australia and another solid midfield like a 𝐓𝐿𝐴𝐴 or something. I think that for them, they need that young talent, quantity over quality. It could be a lot better than just that pick 2. Of course, Jaden Hunt they've brought in as well, adds in a bit of depth into their back line. I'm going to be giving them a C+. Of course, they could have probably done better with that pick 2 deal, but in considering their situation, quantity over quality they do need with young players, I don't mind it at all with their pick 8 and 12. So yeah, C+ for the Eagles. And for the final team in this video, the Western Bulldogs, they've been quite busy in this trade period, taking out Josh Dunkley, their best and fairest winner, Zane Cordy, Josh Sharkey, Lachie Hunter, and bringing in Rory Lobb and Liam Jones. Liam Jones essentially for free. So yeah, I think Dogs fans are quite pleased sort of with Zane Cordy out of the side. He showed his inconsistencies this year. I'm keen to see how Liam Jones does go. He could seriously be the #1 key defender alongside Alex Keith. But yeah, Lobb, a nice addition. Could really pinch hit in the ruck. Do bits down in that forward line alongside Aaron Norton and Josh Bruce. But yeah, for the Bulldogs, I'm going to give them a C+. I thought they were pretty productive in this trade period. I thought they could have gotten a bit better for Josh Dunkley. But, you know, it is what it is. He's gone. He's out the door. But the good thing is they have some really nice looking picks now. Pick 21, a future first. They're going to be looking quite nice in the next few years, I reckon, the Doggies in the draft. But yeah, trade period, C+, I reckon, for their actions. So everyone, that is the end of today's video. Thank you very much for tuning in. So yeah, obviously quite a long video because these are sort of videos, you know, you want to take your time and explain and give my 2 cents on what the clubs did do and what they could have done better, what they, you know, just a simple review, that is safe to say. But yeah, fellas, I'd love to hear your fellas' thoughts down in the comments below, so feel free to comment down below and let me know what you think of my grades. Would you change the grades accordingly? Love to hear your fellas' thoughts. So once again, fellas, thank you very much for tuning into today's video. And until next time, fellas, I'll talk to you later. See you later.